it's that time of the day whether you're waking up or you're starting to fall asleep where maybe you're thinking, I wish I had a few more minutes in bed. How easy is it for you to fall asleep? Are you out in 30 seconds or less, or do you spend time tossing and turning, trying to talk yourself into falling asleep, even counting those sheep? Sleep, it's essential for absolutely everyone. We all do it, but some of us sleep better than others. Now, I wanted to find out from someone who is an expert in this area why some of us sleep better than others and what kind of impact poor sleep can have on us after a conversation with a friend just recently about this. David Hillman is the Deputy Chair of the Sleep Health Foundation, and he's a Perth-based physician, and because of the time difference, it's currently just after 5 a.m. there in Western Australia, I didn't want to get David out of bed, so I spoke to him earlier and began the conversation by asking him how important sleep is.
I think it's an absolutely fundamental aspect of healthy living. So we pay a lot of attention to matters like diet and exercise and watching alcohol intake and wearing seatbelts and a whole lot of other issues that affect our daily lives. This is another one, and sadly, a sadly neglected one at that.
So can you explain to me, Dave, because I don't really understand this, what does sleep actually do for the human body?
Well, it's very interesting, but as you go through the day, the brain, parts of the brain are very, very active, and they get exhausted. All the circuitry within the brain gets exhausted, and it needs some refreshment time to regenerate its capacity to transfer information sensibly and accurately. So the sorts of effects of poor sleep are on things like thinking, vigilance, mood and health. So thinking clearly, quickly and accurately requires good sleep, and of course that all impacts on your decision-making capacities. If you don't sleep well, you don't notice things as clearly, so vigilance is affected. And that, of course, has some safety implications both on the in the workplace and on the road. And, of course, another big aspect of poor sleep is it affects mood. So more irritable with short sleep, less empathy for others, less time for others. So it has impacts on all those sorts of aspects of our daily living. And beyond that, poor sleep over a long period of time does have some measurable effects on health outcomes, heart disease and things like that. I think that's the smaller print. The big print is what's really clear in front of us, the things we all experience when we have poor sleep. That is the effects on our thinking and on our mood and on our ability to pick up on information around us.
David, I was talking to a friend, and this is why I wanted to talk to you about this, and we were discussing how quickly my friend could fall asleep within 30 seconds of head hitting pillow, and then some people, of course, it takes them a lot longer to get to sleep. Why is it that some people can have that immediate instant, let's go to sleep, and then others really struggle with getting to sleep?
Yes, there is a lot of human variability around these issues. I think some of it relates to just simple genetic differences. We're all a little bit different. You can never make a one rule fits all for sleep, as for a lot of other aspects of human behaviour. But secondly, I think importantly, some people have just to have lifelong good sleep habits. So good sleep habits as a child lead into good sleep habits as an adult. And of course, if our sleep is constantly disrupted and at various times of our lives, peak hours, I suppose it's in our middle years, when there's work responsibilities, family responsibilities, kids getting sick, school, getting up early for school, getting up late to pick up the kids from wherever they are in the evenings, those sorts of things start to impact on sleep. And the more chaotic sleep is, the less predictable it becomes in terms of being able to switch it on and off. You need to have regular sleep habits. You need to make time for sleep. You need to have a good wind-down routine. And the more sort of structured you are about it, the better sleep is for most of us.
You mentioned a little bit earlier about some of the impacts poor sleep can have on an individual's life. Are we underestimating the role sleep plays in the way we move through life?
I think a lot of us are. About 35%, about 1 in 3 Australians complain of poor sleep on a daily or near daily basis. That's Australian adults. That's a proportion that's growing, and that, I think the reason why that proportion is growing and why it is as high as it is a lot to do with how we've learned to regard sleep and how a lot of us think of it as the dispensable part of our lives, the bit that can be squeezed to make allowance for all the other things we want to do in terms of work, social life, family life, and increasingly, of course, the intrusion of social media on our sleep. So the sad thing is all those modern possibilities that the electric light and then the digital revolution have delivered to us have put this squeeze on sleep, yet that sleep's our ancient requirement. That requirement hasn't changed since the year dot, and we really do need to service that need, and if we don't, we pay for it. I think a lot of people operate in a sort of what's called a sleep-restricted state, while they are not actually nodding off. They just adjust their sleep to just short of that, and they think they're getting away with it. But they're not the best they can be. So for somebody who functions quite well, they may get away with it reasonably, but there are measurable accident risks associated with that sort of behaviour. Productivity isn't as good as it could be, and just getting on with your family and with your fellow human being isn't as good as it can be, which I think is a very important point to make. That is that your poor sleep isn't just your business, it's the business of the people around you. If you're sleepy and you're driving, then that's an accident risk which is shared by others. If you're sleepy and non-productive, your workmates are picking up after you. If you're sleepy and irritable, well, the rest of all the people you come into contact will have to deal with that. So it's a kind of, in a sense, it's selfish to go short of sleep, and people should give it a lot more attention than they're doing.
David, can you give us any tips or hints on how to change poor sleep behaviour patterns? Yeah,
look, there's a lot of sort of sleep hygiene rules that can be followed, and I might say a visit to the Sleep Health Foundation website. You'll find lots of information there. But essentially, I think rule number one is to make adequate time for sleep. So make time in your life for the sleep that you need. Most of us need around 7.5 hours, some a bit less, some a bit more, some a lot more, and a few lucky ones a lot less. But most of us need 7.5 to 8 hours. Make time for that. Secondly, try and have it at regular hours, because your day, night, wake, sleep, body clock thrives on regularity and is reinforced by that. Thirdly, remove distractions from the bedroom, the electronic distractions that bedrooms are often festooned with. And fourthly, have a decent wind-down routine before sleep. So do something relaxing. Do your worry time in the evening if you must. Think about the day's next activities rather than doing that when you get to bed. And I suppose another pointer would be to make sure that your bedroom is reasonably comfortable. So good light exclusion. That could be expensive curtains. That could be a very cheap eye mask. A good sound exclusion. That could be double glazing, expensive. That could be very cheap earplugs. And comfortable bedding. Spend a little bit of money on this issue. It's 1/3 of your life you're spending asleep, and a lot of people are very mean about it, I think.
That is David Hillman, who is the Deputy Chair of the Sleep Health Foundation, and he's a Perth-based sleep physician. Some really good tips there, and there's a few tips from you today about what you do to help get to sleep. June says to help her get to sleep, she listens to Talking Books or ABC Radio. It's nice to know we're helping you get to sleep. Kathy says, I listen to ABC Radio. I don't know why, but the more interesting the interview, the more you want to listen to it, the quicker I fall asleep. Also goes the same when the quizzes are on. Usually by about the fourth question, I am gone. Thank you to Kathy and June for sending through those messages on 0467 842 722.
Do you know a young person who's up to something great? The ABC is calling for trailblazers who are doing cool things in their regional community, from mental health advocates and young Indigenous leaders to social entrepreneurs. Applications are open now. Trailblazers will have their work featured on the ABC and win a trip to the Trailblazer Lab in Canberra. Do you know an inspiring young person aged 18 to 28? Go to abc.net.au/trailblazers. Entries close July 13.
It is 23 minutes past 7 here on ABC Central Victoria. And staying on the topic of sleep, what do you do to help you sleep? We heard from Kathy and June just a moment ago. I'd love to hear what you do to help you get to sleep on 0467 842 722. I listen to podcasts and TV shows. I'm off within about 5 seconds of listening to them. Now, you might listen to the radio, as we've just heard from Kathy and June, and if you do, then there is a radio station which is absolutely perfect for you, especially if you're having problems getting to sleep. John Watson is the creator of Sleep Radio, an internet-only radio station that broadcasts from Te Aurora in New Zealand, and it wants to put you off to sleep. Now, John, my job is all about waking people up, so why did you want to help people fall asleep?
Good morning, Sian. It's a bit of a long story, really, but I'll try and shorten it up. It's a situation where I had coronary artery bypass surgery about 10 years ago and never realised that one of the side effects of that is chronic depression. And I wasn't diagnosed until 2012 when I had to give up my career with the New Zealand Defence Force. And so, of course, the side effect of depression is insomnia. And I had a counsellor who recommended to me that I go and buy some relaxation CDs and try those and see if that worked for me, because, I never have any trouble getting to sleep. Within 2 minutes, dang, I'm gone. But my problem is that I wake up in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and just simply cannot go to sleep. And so CDs were great, they worked for a wee while. I soon got sick of them, unfortunately, because you're hearing the same music over and over again. And so I did some research with some internet radio stations, and they worked well too for about half an hour until some guy, like the Harvey Norman yelling man, woke me up. and of course, there were advertisements and what I refer to as annoying announcers. I'm sorry about that, Sian. But I thought to myself, there must be something else I can do. And then I thought, hang on a minute, I've got sound engineering skills in my head. I know the internet inside out. I've designed websites. Why don't I create an online radio station that simply plays music that's conducive to helping people sleep? And so it started.
What kind of music do you play on your radio station? Or I'm just assuming that it's music. Is it music?
Yes, absolutely. One thing I very quickly found out was that my listeners don't like bird song, they don't like white noise, they don't like crashing waves, for example. So it has to be very, very slow, downbeat, ambient music that has no vocals in it whatsoever, very neutral sounding and very calming and soothing. And so that's the sort of music that we play, and it appears to work.
Where do you get your music from, John?
Well, I'm quite fortunate. When I first started the station, I was really hunting to try and find music that was suitable. But since we've been going 4 years now, we have a lot of ambient artists around the world who actually submit their work to us for airplay. We select probably around 5% of what we're sent, mainly because we have to vet every single track that we play, have to listen to the thing right through to make sure that there are no hidden surprises, because you'd be quite surprised. Some tracks actually come to us and they sound lovely for the first 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden there's a drum beat in the middle of it, or someone clashes some cymbals, and that's a big no. But we're quite fortunate. Our artists actually get sales because they can see that our listeners can actually see the track as it's playing on our website, can actually click on it and purchase the artist's work online.
John, I'm curious, what kind of feedback have you had from your international audience in regards to the radio station, which is specifically designed to help people get to sleep?
Well, honestly, the feedback has been fabulous. Occasionally we get the odd complaint comes through, but don't we all? People either like us or they don't. And my wife, for example, it doesn't work for her. She goes to sleep using talking books. But other people, it does work for them. And it's not a one-stop shop. I mean, as I say, it doesn't work for everyone. But I mean, as an example, we had a woman who got in contact with us a few months ago who said that her newborn baby was just 2 weeks old, wouldn't stop crying. she tried all the three basics like, feeding, burping, changing the nappy, all those sorts of things. But she downloaded our app, put it on her phone, put the phone beside her baby in the baby's crib, and the baby went off to sleep within 2 minutes and stayed asleep for 7 hours. So
my goodness.
Those are the sorts of success stories we love to hear. And we have other testimonies from people all around the world, from as far as away as Afghanistan and Japan, who say to us, tried all sorts of things like sleeping pills, got addicted to sleeping pills, and managed to get away from those because of the music that we play. It's very rewarding.
I was going to say, it must be quite an interesting position that you're in, because you're motivated by your own situation to start this radio station, and now you're helping, it sounds like, so many people across the world. Did you realise that the lack of sleep was such a big problem for people?
It wasn't until I had the depression and then, of course, the insomnia side effect that when I did some research on, thanks to Mr. Google, I thought, man, this is a major epidemic worldwide, particularly nowadays, and people are working far more than 40 hours and their sleep is disrupted, and a lot of people work shift work, for example, and listen to us during the day, particularly when there's a lot of noise out there in the community going on, like lawnmowers and those sorts of things. But we've been absolutely blown away by how many people we've been able to help.
John, I think it's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for helping people around the world get a good night's sleep, and thank you for sharing your story and your radio station with us this morning here on ABC Central Victoria.
Lovely speaking with you.
That is John Watson, who's done a marvellous job at creating a radio station called Sleep Radio. It's an internet-only radio station that broadcasts from New Zealand, from Aotearoa. And if you'd like to find that radio station because you have problems sleeping, you can go to your search engine and type in Sleep Radio New Zealand, or you can basically go to sleepradio.co.nz. That's sleepradio.co.nz.